Welcome, Autobots and Decepticons. My name is Matthew Flynn, the Gladiator of Kaon, and today I'm joined by Troy Pacelli, also known as Karton, the Klingon cleric, and Netta from Netta's Network. Welcome.
Hey guys.
Hey, how's it going today?
How you
So
doing this morning?
today we're going to be covering the second half of Season 3, and I'm curious if this second half, if you would consider this an improvement over the first half.
Yeah, I mean, so some of the things that I said about Kevin's character, or not Kevin, well, we'll get to Kevin in a minute, but that I was saying about Ben, they smoothed him out. It seemed like they smoothed him out a little bit, or maybe it's also because we have a lot of episodes that don't focus as much on him. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, it's like there's even ones where Gwen was talking to Ben about the Omnitrix and kind of like, is it really the Omnitrix that's helping you do stuff, or is it just you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. As especially as we get to those last couple episodes of the season, it really felt a lot more like the characters that we saw growing all this time. So
Yeah.
I was complaining last time about how I felt there was a lot of loss of character development and regression. I feel like they kind of make up for it in this second half of the season.
You're a bit quiet. Actually, both of you are a bit
Oh,
quiet.
sorry about that.
So, first episode,
Mm-hmm.
which is technically the 11th episode of the season, but let's not make it too confusing.
Right.
Oops, that's the. There we go. So, first episode we'll be talking about is Trade Off. So, this is the return of Darkstar, who, the more I see of him, the more I think he's like some kind of alternate version of Doctor Doom, because he
Yep.
definitely has similarities to Doctor Doom.
And I kind of picked up on that, especially here, because the overarching, I mean, basically the story is kind of a pastiche, homage, ripoff, whatever you want to call it, of the second Fantastic Four movie, where
Oh yeah.
basically it's Ben Grimm working with Doctor Doom to get rid of his deformity and give up his powers, and then then deciding to sacrifice his desire to get rid of his powers to save his friends.
Pretty sure that was the first movie, not the second
Well,
one.
was it the first movie? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
second one was with Galactus and the Silver Surfer.
Okay, yeah, I
Or technically, it
confused them.
wasn't Galactus. Technically, it was Cloud Galactus, or however
Well,
you want to
yeah,
say it.
yeah.
Giant space cloud. Which, I mean, let's not really go into the Fantastic
Right.
Four movies. Even though I like those two movies, they have problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely got a Doctor Doom vibe from Dark Star here,
Mm-hmm.
especially since he cares about like his physical appearance, so he wears a mask to cover himself, just like Doctor Doom does.
Yep.
And he also wears an outfit not identical to Doom, but definitely similar.
Mm-hmm.
Although obviously not classic Doctor Doom, because that's bright green. But I'm more specifically referring to the 2099 Marvel imprint that had like future versions of different characters
Sure.
and a few original characters, and Doctor Doom was one of those comics. Because in that story, Doom got a new outfit that was blue and a silvery kind of color, very similar to Darkstar here. I believe that was early 90s comic, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah.
this episode is written by comic writer Len Wein. This is also not the only episode that he writes. He writes another episode near the end of the season, and then he also writes multiple episodes in later shows. I'm curious what your overall thoughts of this episode are.
Again, when I saw it, I felt a little bit like, okay, I kind of already know this story. We kind of already saw it with the Fantastic Four. But it also kind of drives home how much of the things that I like about Ben 10 are very much grounded in, you know, the comic book stories and movies and whatnot that we
Yeah,
already like. It's like, you know, the writers and creators are kind of keyed into that to begin with. Um, I also always love when Ben 10 brings back characters. They don't, you know, they have loose threads out there that can always be brought back in for another story. So
yeah,
I like that too.
It's like the way I was kind of thinking of it is, you know, you got Kevin being this abnormal looking fellow, and his striving to want to be normal. I mean, isn't that what a lot of people with handicaps want, is to be normal? And so he's striving to get back to that. For him, he's striving to get back to being normal.
Yeah.
And it just, I'm just thinking of, how many people out there have some sort of handicap or whatever and would love to be normal. So just kind of thinking of it that way too. Like, what lengths would you go to be normal, quote unquote?
yeah. Uh, I do like the part where, like after Kevin and Darkstar acquire the this object, the
The
Dominus
Dominus
Librium,
Librium, yeah.
yeah, and they use it to cure themselves. I feel like I do like the fact that Kevin like admits that he doesn't trust Darkstar,
Mm-hmm.
which is definitely a smart position to have
Right.
when return comes to this character. I also like the Dominus Librium itself actually functions how Michael said it would work,
Mm-hmm.
which could be a surprise depending on how much you trust Michael or not.
Yeah.
But, so it results in both Kevin and Michael losing their powers and also being restored back to normal.
Right.
I do like the fact that like at the nearer the end, well, not near near the middle when Kevin comes back to Ben and Gwen and he's normal, and I think that they're like initially happy to see him normal again, but they're like there is that subtle undercurrent of like not quite being, or not necessarily trusting him, but like questioning how he like cured himself so suddenly.
Right.
Yeah, and
Especially when
specifically
Gwen
from
had been
Gwen.
working for so long and so hard on it.
Yeah, and we even get when Gwen touches Kevin's hand, she like gets a flash, like this flash of an image, and you can kind of see Michael,
Right.
and that kind of like hints to her that Michael is involved. I
Mm-hmm.
think she even mentions that she can sense Michael like his aura around Kevin.
Right.
Yeah. I have also noted the subplot with the Forever Knights. While it doesn't really go anywhere, I did notice that one of the knights made a Monty Python reference. Where
Oh,
they
I
were like
missed it.
we attacking, and you just hear one of them go, "Run away, run away!"
Oh, right.
And also, when I checked the Ben 10 wiki, apparently the Witch King's mask or helmet from Lord of the Rings is in the background of the Forever
Oh,
Knights, like the shots with the Forever Knights. But I went back and watched the episode a few times and I couldn't find it anywhere. So
oh,
I'm kind of not completely trusting of whether that's actually in the episode.
could be, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we have Yeah, and Michael uses the Dominus Librium to start absorbing Gwen's energy to make up for the fact that he doesn't have his powers anymore. Although I find it weird that while he was absorbing the energy from Gwen, and then he started absorbing the energy from Ben as well, I did find it weird that he didn't turn golden like he had in previous episodes.
Well, because it was coming from a different source. It wasn't his own ability to absorb those powers. It was coming from the Dominus Librium. So I suspect that's why it manifests differently.
Yeah, because while he was absorbing Gwen's energy, he was there's one part where Ben shoots a fireball at him, and he puts up a shield that's like very similar to Gwen's manner, except it's golden because the Dominus Librium is like golden and has gold energy on it.
Right.
So I think it's sort of somewhat giving him Gwen's, or something replicating something similar to Gwen's powers or magic.
Now, one question that I have at the end of this is
Yeah.
he completely powerless, or is he, like Kevin, put back to the way he was before they found the Dominus Librium?
He was put back to the way he was before.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, we will see Michael again.
Okay.
And ironically enough, he'll look even more like Doctor Doom the next time we see him.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that was like an intentional thing or just a complete coincidence. Okay, is that everything we have on this episode?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next episode. What is this? Okay, no, this is not the. Actually, no, technically. Okay, next episode, Busy Box. So this one has Ben, Gwen, and Kevin searching for an object that's classified as like very high technology, except they don't know what it is. And they encounter it, and it's a glowing box on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And this is also an example of something that I completely forgot about last time. Another episode with Lodestar, and I have a figure of Lodestar, and I've just noticed he has a big CE on his back. I don't know why I never noticed that before. Never mind, that's not the point. Yeah. So for this episode, the box in question, I don't know if you would call this a shapeshifter, but it does change its appearance based on who's in front of it and what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, Google is not being particularly helpful. Yeah, so I'm curious what you think of this episode.
So it's an interesting concept. The idea being that we have these, for lack of a better term, these multi-dimensional creatures, very, very, very powerful. Let's say kind of like the Q, okay? And one of their children loses a toy, just as, a family out, on a drive, child throws a toy out the window and it lands in a field. And that toy is found by, a group of primitives. What do they make of it? Or actually, an even better cinematic reference would be to The Gods Must Be Crazy. A Coca-Cola bottle drops, among some aborigines. And then, it causes all kinds of problems. This very, very powerful alien artifact, and it's just a children's toy.
and it's a mimic.
Yeah.
Yeah. The at the start of the episode, they do mention that this thing is registering as, well. First, they say level 20 tech,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like theorizing what it could be, and then Ben says the Omnitrix because that's level 20 tech,
Mm-hmm.
and then Kevin makes the observation that the thing that they're tracking, um, it only is registering as level 20 tech because that's as high as the a meter will go, and that
Right.
the thing is actually higher than level 20 tech. And
That
for a
makes
frame of
sense.
reference, standard Earth technology is like probably 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So that should give you an idea of the difference. I suppose both this cube and also the Omnitrix. I did also note that when the thing shapeshifts and they start fighting it, well, mostly because like they're attacking it and it's copying what they're doing. And when Kevin smashes it, the actual power source in the middle kind of resembles the cosmic cube from Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously green instead of blue.
Sure.
I did also find it funny with some of the jokes that they were making early on in this episode.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I feel like it seems like a fairly simple episode. Excuse me, a very simple idea. So
Yeah,
there's not a lot to do with this one. I mean, it's a one and done type of story.
yeah. This does have a few returning characters, like the Riedel brothers. Except this time they're not here to repossess something; they're just here to take it and sell it off for their own benefit.
Mm-hmm.
I'd also find it I do find it interesting that this cube, even though it's like a very advanced technology, it can't like completely replicate the different abilities that the characters have. Like with Swampfire, when he's shooting fireballs, the cube when it turns into Swampfire, it doesn't actually shoot fireballs. It like shoots these like big orange balls at the at them, and also when it copies Gwen when she's firing projectiles, it doesn't actually like use mana or anything like that. It just has these like discs that it creates and then spins around and throws them.
Right.
Guys, I have to step away for a moment. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Ah,
But
okay.
yeah, it's very much like there is a certain childlikeness to it that does allude to what it's doing, right? Because
Yeah,
it's like not a literal interpretation, but a facsimile, so to speak.
yeah. Because like when Kevin walks up to it and it turns into him because he's wearing the ID mask. It turns into how the ID mask is making it look. And when he like puts his hand on its face, it replicates that. But because it doesn't understand the subtleties of Kevin's actions, it just extends its arm out like that in his face
Yeah.
and like breaks his ID mask. And this image right here of it later on when it's starts destroying stuff and it like mixes and matches the different things that it's copied.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure I don't know if it was like an intentional visual thing, but here is Humongousaur with cannon arms.
Yeah.
That will become relevant later on.
Oh,
I don't
that's
know if like
true.
that was a thing that they were intentionally doing, or if it was a case of just purely coincidental that this thing like turns its arms into cannons, and
Yeah.
then later on we'll see something very similar.
Right. Makes you wonder then if this device is actually keyed into the the genetic makeup of these creatures and can perceive what their ultimate form will be.
Although I was thinking more along the lines of the show writers or the people creating the show, if they were like, if they had the idea for the ultimate forms already, and they were like, let's throw this separate thing in that looks similar as like
maybe
a pre-version of that. Let's see what it looks like and that sort of thing.
could be, yeah.
Or it could be just completely a case of, hey, let's give Humongous Cannon let's give Humongous Cannon arms and have no relation to anything else that's going on.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
where are we?
didn't really have too much in this one. It was just a standard episode,
Yeah.
somewhat standard sci-fi affair, but
I almost feel like I want to call it a filler episode.
yeah, it does
Yeah,
kind of
like when they
feel
have
like that
those
sometimes.
flashback episodes just for filler.
Well, yeah, or just
Yeah.
like in this case, a standalone episode that, they needed to bulk up the runtime of the season, but,
Yeah,
if you missed this episode, you didn't really miss anything.
yeah. Although this episode does technically connect into the next episode we'll be talking about in like a very minor way.
Mm-hmm.
Near the end of the episode, the I believe they call it a Negian destroyer, I think is what the Reader Brothers refer to it as. I could be pronouncing that wrong, but when they bring it back to Earth and it starts rampaging, and they then fly away, it actually then turns around and blows up their ship and blows them up inside it. And in the next episode, we will see the Reader Brothers again, and they will actually comment on the fact that the Reader Brothers, they saw them explode, and yet they're back again. There was a minor. Well, I suppose if you never watched this episode and you just watched the next episode, then you'll just be slightly confused as to what happened to the Reader Brothers in between episodes.
True.
Okay, so next episode, Con of Wrath.
Yeah. Oh, I gotta say, I really do like this character. This
Wrath.
particular alien, yeah.
Yes, that's why I have chosen Wrath as my icon, because I like him as well. I wonder if you noticed the reference being made with the title of this episode.
Well, I mean, definitely, you get Wrath. He's just an angry character that is inspired just by his wrath. So, I mean, there is that.
I was referring more to the fact that it's a reference to a movie, and it's a movie
the Wrath
you've seen.
Of Khan. Yeah, the Khan of Wrath. Yeah. And of course, the whole overarching storyline is a very dark Khan being played by the one alien race on Ben 10.
Yeah. We have multiple images of Wrath doing things. And of course, this little white mushroom blob.
Yeah, kind of adorable.
And there are definitely other blobs of stuff you could refer to this little thing as.
Yeah,
except in that case, he wouldn't be white.
Yeah.
Yeah, in that case, if he were referring to a different material, he wouldn't be a white blob. He does literally look like a poop emoji.
He does.
Of course, being in that little pod, it's kind of like, oh, is he supposed to be like Baby Yoda?
See, I think this predates Baby Yoda, but
yeah.
The concept is very much similar. Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that's where they got the Baby Yoda.
Could be
idea from, because I mean, if you look at the case that it's traveling in, it's very similar.
It looks very much like the pram on its side. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was super adorable. And then it's like, wait, you're gonna eat it?
Yeah, yeah,
What?
Yeah, and you have Raph in particular being triggered, I suppose randomly, because Ben
yeah.
didn't actively turn into Raph. He more of
Right.
just sort of the honest just sort of glitched out for a moment when what's this thing called, the Tiffid, I think it's called. This little white mushroom blob,
Yep.
Yeah,
and when it goes near Ben,
Mm-hmm.
when they're actually on the ship, it kind of Ben just suddenly turns into Raph.
Mm-hmm.
because I
So
think
I'm
he said
curious if there's
before.
some kind of link between the alien species that have given them this
I think so because it seemed
and
like
the
he
apoplexian.
became him as a protector for the
Yeah.
little guy, like automatically. So I think there's definitely a connection there.
Although keep in mind
Yeah,
too that it does seem that the Omnitrix does seem to, you know, make random decisions on what aliens he's going to become, seemingly because it's got an insight that Ben himself doesn't have.
yeah,
So you never know what the connection could be, you know.
yeah. Because we saw the same thing with Wildvine in the original show. Ben randomly turned into that alien when he was fighting sentient plant monsters, and when he actually was turned into Wildvine, he could actually hear what the mycelium was saying to him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was kind of vague whether that was because they're the same species or because that one particular alien would be useful at that time. And it's kind of very much the same here, where we don't know if there's like a link between the two species involved, or if it's just purely the Omnitrix turning Ben into an alien that it thinks is helpful.
Right.
I do also like the fact that when they get to the alien bar, in the background we can see a whole bunch of alien designs that have been reused from previous shows, or the
Mm-hmm.
previous show and some of the movies. Like we have at least one of the alien designs in the background was the same one for the I suppose the heralds of the Big Tick.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one of those alien designs was in the background. Probably might not have been the same alien, probably a different alien, but the same species. We'd also have as I don't know if you would call it a subplot, but the part where the guy who came to Ben to ask him to take the Tiffids to the Pandaphage planet to like uphold their peace treaty and everything,
Mm-hmm.
and um, and when the Jared, I think's his name, the leader of the Pandaphage, when he like puts the Tiffid on like on some food and then eats it,
Mm-hmm.
and like he's like surprised that they're shocked by that, because he's assuming they already know why they're bringing the Tiffid to him.
Right.
And it's like the case of where the guy who initially came to Ben didn't actually tell him the actual reason that they're doing this, or the more specific details about it.
Right.
I do also like the fact that when Ben, or when Raph is like just sitting in the ship and the Tiffid's like near him, and it's like it like wiggles the top of its head on his nose a few times,
Mm-hmm.
and then he's like pulling it and pulling it down, letting it float back up.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it's like a moment where he's like playing with it, and when Kevin and Gwen turn and look at him, he like grabs it and puts it behind his back, and he's like, What are you looking at?"
Yeah. I think that's another charming thing about this particular alien is this complete lack of impulse control, you know? It's just
Yeah,
pure. It's childlike, really.
yeah, yeah. This particular alien is another example of the traits of the species that Ben turns into having an effect on him.
Yeah.
Because like the way Ben talks and the way Raph talks and acts, it's just the standard way that like apoplexians talk.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a case of when Ben's turned into this alien, even though even though he's the one in control of the transformation, the natural way that the species acts kind of takes it kind of has an influence.
Mm-hmm.
And not all of Ben's aliens are like that. Does kind of sell you on the idea that it is a separate species that when they have like separate instincts and ways of talking or ways of moving around.
Yeah.
And then we also have after Jared swallows the Tiffid, Raph jumps on his face, opens his mouth, jumps down his throat, and then pulls the Tiffid back out of his stomach.
Right.
I thought that was great. It's like,
Yeah.
nope, you're not eating this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when Jared threatens to go to a war with the I've actually forgotten what the species is called. The ones who like initially sent the Tiffid with them. But yeah, when he threatens to go to war with them,
Yeah.
because he obviously considers this act against the treaty or breaking the treaty or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Raph gives the Tiffid to Gwen for a moment, and then jumps on his face, and he's like, I just jumped down your throat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, if you go to war with I don't remember what the name is, but if you go to war with them, I'll jump down your throat, and this time I'll knit your intestines into a scarf or something like that.
Yeah. I don't know if you caught it, but when Jarrett says, he specifically uses the old Marx Brothers line, certainly you realize this means war.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's brilliant. That's duck soup.
Yeah. I do find it strange that Jar is the only member of the species we see who is this big.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure other pantophages we see, they're all like normal size. I have no idea if that's like specifically.
I was going to say that could just be because it's the royal lineage or something that happens to them when they become king. Could be any
Or it's
number.
convenient for the episode so Raph can jump down his stomach.
Well, that's true too.
And also, this episode has the tells us the information that the Vriedel brothers are actually clones. Because in the previous episode we saw them blow up in their ship, and then this episode they come back, and they even comment on the fact that they saw them explode, and they say that that they were cloned.
Mm-hmm.
I also find it funny that Rhomboid starts giving out more information, more personal information than he's actually supposed to. I do find that funny because he's saying how the cloning kit that their parents bought was out of date, and I'm just thinking, yeah, that actually explains a lot of the reasons, the way they look and the way they act and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I would expect the cloning kit to be out of date considering how they turned out.
Yeah, because Ben sounds like Bender from Futurama in this, I kept expecting him to say, "Bite my shiny metal butt."
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's not a coincidence. It is the same voice actor.
That is true, yeah.
It is John DiMaggio doing the voice of Raph.
Oh, you're serious? Let me laugh even harder then.
Okay. Next episode, Primus.
That some of the aliens that Ben turns into has some anger issues.
Yeah, well, this one definitely does. That's the whole point of the character.
Yeah. And even Gwen and Kevin bring up the some kind of alien database that they looked up to see what alien Ben's turned into. Yeah. Which is surprising that that's never brought up or used again.
Yeah, that is one of the weaknesses that I sometimes see in this show.
Yeah, the show does like to ride the line between really great TV and really dumb TV. Really, show really does like to ride that line pretty tight sometimes. Yeah, so at the start of this episode, we have Ben, Gwen, and Kevin fighting another Tekadon robot. Except this one's red. They even mentioned the fact that the Tekadon they're fighting at the beginning of this episode. They even mentioned about the fact that didn't we destroy it already? And Kevin points out that it's not the same robot; it's a different one.
Mm-hmm.
We will actually get more information on the Tekadon robots in like a later show.
Okay.
Yeah. Right now, they're just random robot enemies for Ben, Gwen, and Kevin to fight every now and then. There isn't really too much information on like how Tekadons work or why they're being sent after them.
It's almost like a training exercise. Okay, you guys are getting lazy. Let me send something after you to, make you use your skills and keep practicing,
Yeah. Well, you also get the Omnitrix slides off of Ben's wrist and teleports to the planet Primus, which looks very similar to a planet from an episode of Star Trek. That probably might not be a coincidence. That might be intentional.
Oh, it probably is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I also was wondering if Primus was there a Transformers reference here?
Yeah,
too?
I was thinking that, but I couldn't find any information saying whether they were referencing Transformers with that.
Well, see, I didn't, because I have not the anything like the kind of knowledge you have about Transformers.
Yeah.
Is Primus like a planet-sized robot or something like that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. See that
because he turns into the core of Cybertron.
So it even if there is nothing overtly saying it, I feel like there's got to be a connection here.
I mean, this is an artificial planet as well.
Right.
I suppose you could refer to Cybertron as an artificial planet. Although there's more to it than that. It did start off as like an asteroid that was slowly turned into Cybertron. But yeah, there are similarities, but I couldn't find any like official statements saying that they were aiming for that. And as far as I'm aware, I don't think Hasbro have the trademark on the name Primus, because they have to sell a toy with that name on it in order to maintain the trademark. And the last toy called Primus was like 2003, 2004. And they haven't put out another toy or figure with the trademark Primus on it since then. So it's questionable if Hasbro even has the rights to the name. So I'm assuming that's why they're able to use the name with seemingly no consequences.
And so this is a very lore-heavy episode about the Omnitrix again.
Yeah. Because this planet is the when Vilgax broke Ghost Freak out of the containment he was in, and asked him like the secrets of the Omnitrix. And this episode even starts with us being shown Vilgax and him like remembering his talk with Ghost Freak, and we actually see a little bit more of that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And Ghost Freak tells him about this planet Primus, which I suppose makes sense that Ghost Freak would know of this planet. He was initially in the Omnitrix, or a DNA sample in the Omnitrix.
Right.
And unlike other DNA samples, his DNA actually does have some kind of consciousness to it, which because back in the original series, he does mention that ectoneurite DNA acts as like a copy of the original being. It basically has a consciousness of its own. So I suppose while he was being put into the Omnitrix, whether that was whether he was intentionally put in the Omnitrix or accidentally, he must have had memory of that process happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the planet Primus here has I suppose this is Primus is basically the computer to the Omnitrix being a phone, maybe.
Yeah,
That
I
kind
could
of
see that.
in that analogy. I mean, Azimuth does refer to Primus as a database for all the alien DNA, because that's what this green. Well, I know at first Gwen assumes that it's green lava,
Mm-hmm.
and then we later learn that it's actually all of the stored DNA from all over the universe, and it's referred to as the codon stream. And we have these where this is one of the annoying things about working with Google is it doesn't give you what you want, or it doesn't give you the specific images you're looking for.
Kind of
That is
like
right.
working with
Yeah,
the
but
Omnitrix.
yeah, I suppose. Except I feel like Google has a less respect for the people using it than the Omnitrix does.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, so the DNA for the different aliens from all over the universe is collected by the blue wasp bee things, like these robot wasp-looking things called Beliscus velop, or however I have no idea how to pronounce that. It's one of those like very strange words.
You mean almost
Alien, yeah, exactly.
If I do that, I think, yeah, there it is. Is that too small to see? Right there.
No, I can see it.
Yeah, yeah. Veliscus biopsis. Yeah. Oh, okay, I didn't even know. Yeah. So yeah, the Veliscus biopsies are the things that go out through the universe and collect the DNA from all the different aliens in the universe. We don't get any kind of information whether or not that's how Azimuth originally collected the DNA, or if that's like a different method he took up later on in the construction of the Omnitrix. We don't really get any information on that. That's left kind of vague. Now, I'm curious what you've got for this episode, or how much notes you've made of this.
Well, I remember at one point Bed said something like, I thought the Omnitrix was programmed to, like go back to its planet origin if something happened to it or something like that. And Asmus goes, yeah, it did. Here's where it was, created.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's because
Ben
Ben
had
was
in his head it
confused.
was someplace else that it was made.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
he
'cause,
also thought
Ben,
Primus was a person.
Yeah, that too.
yeah, there was a little confusion there on that. I don't know if that you could refer to that as him being like uncharacteristically dim, or if like or if he genuinely doesn't understand that at first.
Actually, as I was watching the episode, I did not think that at all. I totally understood why he would be confused. Especially because these little glimpses into the lore of the creation of the Omnitrix,
Yeah.
it honestly does feel like the writers are just kind of making it up as they go. It's like they didn't really have a plan for it in the first place, and so every time they needed to have some bit of lore or some intent or whatever that fits the story now, they add it.
Yeah.
Even sometimes Azimuth's attitude towards Ben and towards his whole purpose for the Omnitrix seems to change over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And we also have the whole reason that the Omnitrix teleported Ben to this planet is because Vilgax was attacking it and threatening to destroy the planet.
Right.
And I suppose it was I suppose you could refer to it as a safety defense or some kind of like an alarm that like summons the Omnitrix back to the place where all the DNA is stored.
Does make sense, yeah.
I also like the fact that we see when Ben when they actually teleport to this planet and the Omnitrix removes from Ben's wrist, and then one of the Villiscus biops take the Omnitrix and fly away with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we actually catch up to it, we see Azimuth is wearing the Omnitrix, and like he's transformed into some of the aliens and he's fighting Vilgax.
Mm-hmm.
I also find it funny that we get Azimuth turns into Raph, and we hear hear Raph, but he's in like Azimuth's voice.
Mm-hmm.
I did find that kind of funny.
And we see something that we may have seen this before, but we'll definitely see it later in the season. We see that Ben is able to overcome because of a greater knowledge and connection to the Omnitrix.
Oh yeah, because Vilgax defeats Azimuth and then takes the Omnitrix from him,
Mm-hmm.
and then he puts it on himself, and he like tries forcing Azimuth to tell him how it works, and he refuses. He even says later that he'd rather die than give up the Omnitrix, like these secrets and a greater knowledge of how the Omnitrix works.
Yeah.
But I did notice that when Vilgax was wearing the Omnitrix, it looked like it was like pushed into his arm rather than actually on his arm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that's like an intentional thing, as an intentional thing they did, or if that was
Lazy
purely just like how whoever animated this episode wanted to do that.
I mean,
Yeah.
although this is kind of doesn't work with the way we know that the Omnitrix works. The artist might very well have been trying to convey tiny little watch on a very big hand kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we've seen it on other aliens where they've had bigger wrists or whatever.
I know that. I know that. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that it could have just been an affectation of the artist's style.
I did also read on the Ben 10 wiki that it mentions that the Omnitrix isn't actually bonded to Vilgax when he's wearing it. That
Right.
apparently it's still bonded to Ben, but obviously that's never mentioned in the actual episode, so that
Sure.
could be purely someone's headcanon for why it looks like that, or why it's so easily pulled off of Vilgax when he's transformed into an alien.
But that's
Yeah,
a
we do
pretty
get
strong indicator, you know.
yeah.
I mean, I would have to say that almost confirms that supposition.
Yeah, because we have Ben actually tells Vilgax how the Omnitrix works and everything, which at first I was thinking that's kind of weird because Vilgax is someone who's claimed to be a master of the Omnitrix.
Mm-hmm.
But the more I thought about it, the more I think actually Vilgax has only like been studying how the Omnitrix looked before.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't actually studied how the Omnitrix how it works after it was after it recalibrated itself. Because obviously he spent years studying the way the Omnitrix used to be. So I'm thinking after it recalibrated, especially since he's not been around for like 5 years before that. So I'm thinking, so it kind of somewhat makes sense that he initially doesn't fully understand how the Omnitrix works right now.
Yeah.
Until Ben then shows him how it works, which, as we'll later learn, was definitely a mistake.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the Ben turns Vilgax into goop, and then he like jumps and grabs the anti-gravity disc that's helping goop like stand up and move around, and like he disables it, and like you said, showing that Ben does actually have a connection with the Omnitrix, and actually like he has a greater understanding of it and some of the aliens.
Yep.
I also like the part when when Vilgax falls into the codon stream and then he emerges giant,
Mm-hmm.
and Ben turns into way big to fight him. I did find it funny that he's like, while he's fighting him, he like grabs his hand and like makes him punch himself in the face with his own
Why are you
hand, and he's like,
punching
"Stop hitting yourself!
yourself?
Stop hitting yourself! Stop hitting yourself!"
Yeah.
I did find that really funny, and apparently so did Kevin.
Yeah. He's like a classic.
Yeah, and what else? Yeah, I don't have much else that I noticed about it. Obviously, we had Azimuth explain. Obviously, I had Kramer. God damn it, I'm mixing up the names. We had Azimuth explain like the purpose of the planet Primus and how some of the things, ways of how it works and everything.
Yeah.
Well, there had to be that exposition there so that we knew what was going on,
Right.
because otherwise we would have no idea.
Yeah. And obviously, the Omnitrix doesn't necessarily have to be always connected to Primus in order for him to transform into different aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Because I suppose you could think of it as like moving, like, say, music from your computer onto your phone. You don't necessarily have to have your phone connected to your computer all the time to listen to that music, because it's then on your phone.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's an analogy that well, probably the best analogy I could come up with for how this works. Okay. Next episode, which
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll probably keep refer to as a highlight episode for this
Well,
season.
kind of, but in a very, very good and interesting way.
Yeah. So next episode, Time Heals, which
This
I
one
have
is
noted
very timey-wimey to
Yeah.
draw from Doctor Who.
Yeah. I even was going to make that reference as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for this episode, I did mention that I did put in the notes that it has a very similar plot, or part of the plot is very similar to Back to the Future 2,
Mm-hmm.
with like a character traveling through time, changing the past, and then coming back to the present, and it's ended up becoming like a hellscape.
Right.
And then they have to go back in time and fix what was done in the past to then restore the present.
Yeah.
Which I know you could technically say Back to the Future 1, but that didn't have this whole element of the present being radically altered.
It was definitely the second one. Yeah.
Yeah. This episode actually starts with Gwen in her Lucky Girl costume again.
Yeah.
Which I think this is the first time we've seen since the season 2 or 3 episode, I think. Yeah, I think no, there was season 2. Season 2 of the original show was the last time we saw Gwen dressed as Lucky Girl.
Mm-hmm.
Then after that, she just sort of stopped wearing that outfit and, I suppose, doing anything related to that.
But I do like, it's been such a long stretch since we've seen it. They do these very deep dives into the lore. There is this idea that, yes, I know this is a show for kids. I know they may not see every single episode, but we have faith that there's enough fans that follow this closely enough that they will, appreciate this reference.
Yeah. We even have a separate reference back to the original series, also related to Hex and Charmcaster, and that's the Arcomeda Book of Spells.
Right.
Is the specific book that Gwen takes from Hex's library. Although I have noted that in this episode, the Arcomeda Book of Spells looks different from how it did in the original series. Because in the original series, it's blue with like gold and engraved plating over it and everything, and it's got like different runic type symbols on it. And in this episode, it's just kind of a beige red with the words Arcana Book of Spells written on the cover.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's kind of a case of the guys making this episode didn't actually look at how the book originally looked, or if they actively decided to make it look different.
Well, and if they did decide, intentionally, I'm going to posit that it's a send up to the altering of time. Kind of the whole, like Data's cat concept that I've mentioned before.
Yeah.
Something's changed. They're not explaining what happened or why. It's such a minor change, it doesn't really matter, but,
And
Yeah.
since this is a kids show, how many kids would actually notice?
True, there is that. But
Yeah,
I
that's a
just
good point.
pointed out that, again, they do seem to maintain continuity to very, very far back, despite the fact that it's a kids show.
Yeah, I mean, we already mentioned 2 references to the first season of the original
Yeah.
show. And, we have, so Gwen has decided that I don't know if she actually has gone through every other spell, but she's looked through plenty of spells to try and figure out how to restore Kevin to normal.
Mm-hmm.
And she's decided on using time travel to stop the initial explosion that mutated him from happening, or back in Vengeance of Vilgax.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously, because this is a time travel episode, or time travel involved, Professor Paradox is also involved in this. Or not so much involved, but he shows up multiple times.
Well,
And I believe he says time travel is for the immortal and foolish, I believe he says.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously he gives her or not a direct warning, but kind of an ominous warning about not going through with changing history. And we then get then when Gwen changes history, it then turns into the present turns into like a hellscape.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious what you think of this episode.
Well, this is incredibly juvenile of me, but the one thing that happened to stand out the absolute most was the whole plot point of the first time Gwen goes back in time and encounters herself, and it's a perfectly good logical point of view. They've encountered situations where they run into duplicates of each other and themselves, and how do I know it's you?
Yeah.
So say something that only I would know. And she goes and she whispers to her, and we don't know what she says. But her reaction is it really does make you wonder what it is she says.
Yeah.
So
especially since she looked at Kevin at one point during that scene as well.
Yeah, so that's where the most likely theory goes. Somebody on the interwebs has posited it had something to do with like another throwback to Kevin and his like smelly socks or something like that.
Yeah.
Because she's like, ooh, gross. You could have just, said something about my locker combination or something like that.
Which then, when Gwen comes back again,
she does that, yeah.
Well, she doesn't say the combination. She goes, our lock is broken, but we keep it on there and making it look like it's closed and no one knows.
Right, which is exactly, knowing a locker combination would not be enough. The fact that there is no locker combination because it's broken, that's, far more evidence. But anyway, the point that I was getting at was that was not what neither one of us thought initially. And so the other theory that people bandy around on the internet could not possibly have been unintentional by the writers.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. I mean, I noticed it as well.
Okay,
yes, so that's something that I found funny as well.
Without being too graphic, it It's the sort of thing that would show up on certain Reddit subreddits and fanfic stories.
Which
Oh, you
also
mean
makes
like
me think that
DeviantArt?
it was males who wrote this episode.
Oh, absolutely,
Because it's
absolutely.
like, yeah, a
Yeah.
woman would have been a heck of a lot more subtle if she was writing that.
Right.
And you wouldn't even have been able to, make your mind jump to that because it would have been so subtle, you would have made that connection. So this was obviously boys being teenagers writing this episode because, like, seriously, you got hormones involved.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so I think that pretty much is out there now in the
Yep.
blogosphere. Um, Something else that jumped out at me was in the dystopian future where what's his name? The magic
Hex.
guy. Yeah. When he is running things, these propaganda posters of him
I
doing
didn't have
this
the thing up.
with,
There we go.
it says submit, right?
Yeah.
Very, very much a
Borg reference?
no.
They live.
Very, very much. It seems to me to be a reference to the Stalin propaganda poster.
Oh, okay.
You
Yeah,
know, the
I
red
kind of
lines
got that
behind
vibe
it
from
and
it.
everything and whatnot.
Yeah, I got that general vibe from that. We'd also have that in this alternate present, Hex is aware that Gwen, or he's aware to some degree that Gwen has altered time
Yeah.
because he mentions that he doesn't want to let her change time again.
Right. So you get this very interesting triple paradox where she has to go back yet again to convince both of her previous selves, we got to
Yeah.
fix this. This isn't right. Take away the memory from her first one, and
But does Gwen really have the power to erase someone's memory?
I think that's just this episode.
one could argue that maybe it's an ability she has of doing it to herself.
Yeah. I mean, she might be from different times, but she is still the same person. Maybe it's only effective on her. Yeah. What was I going to say? Yeah. In this alternate, this episode actually kind of acts somewhat like a I guess you could say as like a character arc of Kevin learning to accept the way he is, except not really Kevin's arc because he has nothing to do. It's probably more to do with Gwen, because it's like the way when he's mutated, the timeline progresses normally, and when Gwen changes it so he never mutated, that results in this like hellscape being created.
Yeah.
And Paradox even points out that with Kevin not being mutated, he then doesn't have like, I think they kind of leave it kind of vague as to what exactly Kevin's mutation has to do with this.
Mm-hmm.
They do mention that Kevin being mutated is like a key point, and was a key point in preventing this like hellscape from being created.
Right. And I also felt like it was a character development for Gwen in what we were talking about before of her kind of having a sympathy and understanding for Kevin and his hang-ups about his looks and all this kind of stuff. Doesn't make her any more or less compassionate for him. She already was, clearly, but I think she kind of sees it a little bit more from his point of view and kind of understands, Yeah, that's what I got from it.
Yeah. Yeah, so we also have this this alternate timeline version of Ben.
Mm-hmm.
he technically sacrifices himself so that Gwen can travel back and reverse and put the timeline back the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know, as soon as we see Ben um, surrounded by enemies and like buying Gwen time, we pretty much never see that again. So for all intents and purposes, that version of Ben has like sacrificed himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even when he sees her, it's like, Gwen, but you died. You
I
know?
I really do feel
Yeah,
though that there's no way to know this for sure, but it really feels like the time travel alternate universes created by this episode cease to exist when time is set right again.
yeah,
Especially since you see the two Gwens disappear.
yeah. And at the end, Gwen doesn't have any knowledge of any of that.
Right.
She only has knowledge of what's already happened before she changed history.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
had Dr. Paradox just, told us, like, instead of doing the riddles of, you don't want to do that, something, may not turn out the way you expect it to, and just simply said, if you go back in time and try to change it, this is what's going to happen.
The difference is though
Yeah,
that Dr. Paradox has seen all the possible futures. So he
yeah,
knows the best way to nudge
yeah.
things along.
It's like, okay, go
And
ahead, go
Professor,
do something
yeah,
stupid that you now have to go and undo.
Yeah.
yeah, and Professor Paradox had some of the funniest lines in this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like the part where they're in the tree and when Gwen is told that she's dead in this timeline, she's like, dead? Me? He's like no, she's like, no, me dead? And he's like, yes, you dead. Why are we talking like this?
Yeah.
Like caveman talk.
And also the other part is like, careful, gravity is not your friend.
Yeah.
And also the other part when Professor Paradox reappears for the second time when Gwen's hiding and like because he tends to appear out of nowhere very suddenly. She like turns around and he's like, stop doing that, and then he like goes away. He's like, okay, I'll be on my way now. And then I think there's also a part where he says he's like I told you time travel is for immortals and fools. And
Mm.
he's like I speak from experience. He's like, you do the math.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly
I don't know
right.
if that's exactly how he said it, but that's the general idea of what he was
Yeah.
saying.
And he wasn't wrong.
Yeah. Don't have too much else to say about this particular episode.
No.
That was your typical, okay, I'm going to do something stupid that now I have to undo episode.
True.
Yeah,
But then by trying to undo it, I've made it worse, so now I have to go back even further to undo that mess that I did.
yeah. Doesn't that take up like certain percentages of most time travel stories?
Yeah.
True.
Next episode, The Secret of Chromastone.
And I feel like this episode is the culmination of exactly why the Omnitrix exists.
Yeah. This one is I suppose you could refer to this one as an expansion on some story elements that we've been told before.
Mm-hmm.
Like with like in the sequence of the Omnitrix movie, when Tetrax told Ben, he didn't like go super in detail about it, but he did tell Ben about some of his like backstory and some of like what he's done
Right.
in the past. And this episode kind of expands on that backstory that we were given in that movie.
Right. And when when they actually went into the Omnitrix, we find out a little bit more too about his world. Finding out he's basically like the last one of his kind, other than
Yeah,
the one that's in the Omnitrix.
yeah, the DNA sample that's in the Omnitrix,
Right.
and and Asimov did mention in the War of the Worlds two-parter that the Omnitrix is a backlog for any of the species that have been wiped out.
Right.
Yeah, so actually, right at the beginning of this episode, we have obviously kind of a more comedic moment of Kevin, Gwen, and Ben driving in a hurry to a smoothie place that's for some reason out
Yeah,
in the
we
desert.
we honestly thought we were missing an episode. Like this was the second part of a two-parter. And we're trying to
Yeah,
figure out what happened to Ben. What's going on here?
yeah, and then it's really she just has a cold, and
Yeah.
he's being a little overdramatic about it.
Well,
We'd also get a
just
moment where Kevin honks his horn at a truck driver that's in the way, and then
Yeah.
he transforms his car into like a whole bunch of weapons.
Yeah, like
And
overreaction much.
yeah,
it's like race driving.
And Gwen even says to him, okay,
yeah,
okay,
anger
anger
management.
management, let's
Yeah, like appropriate
appropriate
response.
response here, yeah.
And of course, I was looking at this as okay, is this gonna be one of those War of the World things where he's got a cold and that's gonna like wipe out some alien that he's got to fight or something like that?
And it kind of does, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is actually one moment in this episode that kind of, I suppose, brought up a plot hole or brought up kind of a weird contradiction and just sort of made a joke out of it. And that's when Ben is turned into Diamond Head, he sneezes, and he even comments on the fact that they even comment on the fact that
How
that
does the
Diamond Head's a being that
silicone-based
can't
life
get a
work?
cold.
Yeah, get a cold. I've never had one.
Yeah. And
Well, it's because there's
although I'm
enough
thinking
in
that's
there.
probably the Omnitrix replicating whatever state Ben is in and kind of overlaying that on whatever species he's turned into.
It has
Like with
to
the
be,
original
yeah.
series where he had a cold and then all the aliens had also had a cold, but like in their own specific way.
Yeah. So when he sneezes, instead of, particulate,
Snot.
snot and whatnot flying, it's little crystals. And you see them kind of rip apart the truck. Okay, fine. But there's also a whole bunch of them stuck into what's his name?
Tetrax.
Tetrax. Now, I felt like that was a missed opportunity because Tetrax kind of shakes him off. I thought it
Yeah.
would have been funnier if he kind of, and it more interesting if he'd just like absorbed them into himself.
Yeah.
I have expected him just to go like, "Ow," you know.
Maybe.
I mean, he does have right diamond hard skin, so
True.
also if he was to absorb them into himself, that has some very bizarre implications for how the species work.
Yeah. True. But then that really starts pushing like what do they eat? Do they consume other, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, the home planet seems to be made of the same material as them.
Right.
Or that might just be the fact that it's coloured the same as them.
Yep.
It's hard to tell with animated shows sometimes.
And of course, it fell on that same thing of the original hero can't pull off the job. They're just too weak. Ben, you gotta come to the rescue. Yeah.
Yeah. So this episode has,
But I also
yeah,
want
like you
something
said, this
else.
one has some of the more some interesting elements to it. Like with this is probably a little more confusing. This probably isn't as confusing as I'm perceiving it, but when Tetrax uses this like device to break apart Diamond Head, and then Chromostone is inside like Diamond Head and he like throws him out, I did find that kind of strange because I know they're the same. Well, they're not identical, but they are the same. They do have a genetic link to them. So that part I understand, but the part about the fact that Chromostone was just sort of underneath or inside of Diamond Head, I find that slightly strange.
costume.
Yeah, it definitely even looks kind of like a costume as well.
He's wearing an Edgar suit.
Yeah. Well, I after you look at the episode in its entirety, I feel like it was a necessary element to catalyze the purpose, right? Which is the
Yeah,
restoration of the
yeah, Petropia.
yeah. So this was something that was specifically inserted into the Omnitrix specifically for this reason, and therefore, you know, that in and of itself is enough justification for it.
But they also brought up a good point. What happens if Ben is disassembled? Will he, when he goes back to human form, be disassembled? And so they
Yeah,
had to like really gamble
But
on
I
that.
felt like they had really already alluded to the answer to that with oh, what's the little guy that becomes multiple
Echo
versions?
Echo.
Yeah, Echo Echo. You know, just because one Echo Echo dies doesn't mean, Ben's
Yeah,
gonna
Ben.
die or anything,
No, but
Yeah,
once
because
again,
his
Kevin was
copies can be
like,
destroyed with no problem whatsoever.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
once again, Kevin's kind of got him sort of back together, and he's like, yeah, we don't know what's going to happen. Or Ben is saying, we don't know what's going to happen. And Kevin just like, I don't care. Boom. Okay, you're human again.
Yeah,
Without any thought or concern. It's like,
Although his justification was pretty good too, because he says, you were gonna time out anyway, so
yeah, yeah. He was going to turn back into a human being at some point, either right then or however long was left, however much energy he had left in the Omnitrix. Yeah, and so when Chromostone is removed from Diamond Head, Tetrax takes the a red crystal that I'm pretty sure it's the same red crystal that was shown in like a flashback image in the Secrets of the Omnitrix movie. Obviously, it looks slightly different. This one is just like a single shard of crystal, while in the original show it looked more like multiple crystals sticking off in different directions. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the same crystal. Yeah, but in the original series, they mentioned that Tetrax brought up that he worked for Vilgax and that he took that crystal from his home planet and gave it to Vilgax, and then Vilgax used that to destroy Petropia. And obviously, obviously he's been carrying that mistake for however long it's been since the planet was destroyed.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we
So
have
again, you have a situation where either the writers had this planned out, or at least in the back of their mind as they were doing the original story, or they went back and looked and crafted a story based on threads from the previous.
yeah. Yeah, it could go either way with this show. But yeah, obviously we have Vilgax chasing after Tetrax because he wants the crystal back. He even mentions that when he says that it's his crystal, he does mention that he paid for it. So I don't know if that technically actually does make it his property because he paid for it, or if it's or if maybe there's more to it than that.
Well, I think it's the same. One could make arguments about ownership of, if property is stolen and then sold to somebody else, the person that paid for it didn't actually commit a crime. They had no way to know that it was stolen property. But does that mean it now belongs to them? No, it still belongs to the original owner.
exactly. And if you
Yeah,
take a good example is artworks that were stolen during the war.
You're right.
It's like when they come to
yeah,
light and the original family that owned it comes up and says, hey, that was my family's, whoever has it has to give it back to them by law.
Yeah.
yeah. Because Vilgax even refers to Chromostone as a thief,
Yeah.
in relation to the crystal itself. And we even have this. Well, technically, this isn't. I mean, it looks like Chromostone, but technically isn't. He has his own name and identity
Yep.
because his name's Soglight, or however you pronounce that.
Right.
I mean, that's how it's spelled. yeah, I do like that part when Vilgax is like chased after him, and Vilgax is like attacking him and trying to take the crystal back or find where the crystal's gone, and all the all the Sug like here, all he's concerned with is finishing restoring the planet and its people before it's too late. Because obviously there's like a solar alignment in this solar system that's allowing this all to happen.
Well, you also find out that because I don't remember seeing or hearing this in any other episode where Ben is able to do a self-destruct on the Omnitrix, and
That's not this
they're
episode. That's the final episode.
oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, we're not
Right.
there yet.
What I did want to mention though is,
Yeah,
Kevin has some of the worst puns, but they still stand out and they're still funny. And he gets some of the sillier references. And I did like the line about in space nobody can hear you sneeze.
yeah. Yeah, we also have the Suglight himself. He technically dies near the end of the episode because Vilgax pulls like the crystal off of his head,
Mm-hmm.
and he starts using that, and then he like even mentions that there's not enough power in it, and I suppose displaying some like character, displaying some like character, like he does say that the energy's like nearly gone and it's wasted restoring a dead planet.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
But it really wasn't a dead planet. They were just kind of dormant until they could be revived.
yeah, but it kind of indicates to the way Vilgax like views stuff like this, because there's no people on this planet, he can't really rule this planet if he was to conquer it.
Right.
And the last time he was here, he just blew up the planet. I don't remember the specific details of why he destroyed this planet the last time he was here.
Because he's not nice. Sometimes these villains do things just to be jerks.
Yeah. And we have because this particular alien, because he's obviously he's a crystal sapien, but he's still genetically linked to all the other Petrosapiens on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he's a unique life form amongst this planet, and obviously Chromostone is a genetic duplicate of him.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the only difference between them is that this guy has a white eye and no Omnitrix symbol.
Right.
While Chromostone has a green eye and an Omnitrix symbol on his chest. And I'm
he
pretty
does
sure
make it clear that the hero that Ben knows is still in the Omnitrix, basically communicating, I'm someone separate.
Yeah, because he even mentioned when Ben thinks Chromostone is gone.
Yeah.
And then when he sees that he's been restored with the rest of the people.
Yeah.
He then he's still referring to him by Chromostone because that's what the name he gave that form.
Right.
And he even mentions like the name's not Chromostone. He's still in your Omnitrix.
Right.
Yeah. This does kind of confuse me when it comes to the first, like the opening two-parter of the season, when Chromostone was destroyed, or when Vilgax destroyed the Chromostone transformation, and he like reformed as Diamond Head.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously at that point, that's kind of subtly hinting at the connection between the two of the species, the connection in their species. But in terms of Ben transforming into those aliens, I feel like it's slightly strange because we even see Tetrax turn Ben into Chromastone, or try to turn him into Chromastone, but when he's like turning, we see a hologram of Chromastone, but when he slaps the Omnitrix down, he turns into Diamond Head. So I feel like it's minor details like that do make it slightly more confusing to follow, but yeah, like you said, the general overall idea of the episode still carries through. And we also have another example of Ben saving another world. And I do find it funny that when, like, at first when he thinks Chromastone is still dead, but the rest of the people are alive, he is kind of sad about that. But then when he, like, realizes that Chromastone is alive still, or the DNA sample, or the alien that the DNA sample was taken from is still alive, he, like, and that all the people were there and they're celebrating. I do find it funny that Kevin and Gwen are just immediately like, yeah, we're never going to hear the end of this.
Right. But in fairness, he doesn't really gloat about it like he has about saving the universe and all these other things he's done in the past. This is what I meant when I was like, okay, it looks like we got the more even keel, more humble Ben back, it seems.
Yeah, well, to some extent, I suppose.
And something else I noticed, with all the restoration of all the Petrosapiens, they all look male to me, and adult.
Yeah. See, because it's the exact same animation model, just pasted a whole bunch of times all over the image.
Right. Does that mean that now it's a single-gendered race now, or was it always that way, or what?
I have no idea. I mean, considering in the original series, the Gwen 10 episode, Gwen did turn into Diamond Head, and the actual animation model for Gwen turning into Diamond Head did look somewhat female.
Yeah. So we know that there is a female look for them.
Yeah.
Didn't Ben also turn into, when he was a kid, he turned into a juvenile version?
Yeah, he turned into what would be a 10-year-old Petrosapien.
So there's got to be an aging thing. There's got to be reproduction and juveniles. So,
although this would be 16-year-old. When Ben turns into Diamond Head now, like this would be a 16-year-old Petrosapien. Although he doesn't look that different in terms of like the way he looks, he only is like slightly different looking from like 10-year-old Ben as Diamond Head.
Yeah.
Obviously, the most apparent difference is he's a different color and he's taller.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, yeah, I mean that's not from the original series, but that's what the original series Diamond Head looked like. He looked something like that. Because the general, well, except for the huge shoulder spikes, they weren't that big. But yeah, the overall shape is mostly the same. It's just he's in a slightly different outfit and he's different colors and he's taller. Maybe it's a case of Petrosapiens age in a slightly different way, or not like don't have such a drastic aging process, or look super different to the way we would look when we age.
Yeah.
Because I'm fairly certain you could probably take a picture of like yourself when you're like a child, and then a picture of yourself like multiple years later, and obviously you'd be able to tell it's the same person, but like there are very clear differences. Maybe it's a case of because they're sentient diamonds. Maybe they don't age. Well, maybe they only like physically change with age, but don't actually age away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, how do you age a rock?
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure diamond doesn't decay with age. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Okay. Yeah, we only have a few more episodes left. Okay. Next episode, Above and Beyond. This one definitely reminded me of an episode of Star Trek. I believe it was Deep Space Nine. I believe that's the one that I was thinking of that's very similar to this.
Yeah. So, this was an example of an episode where big plot twist at the end. It's not what it looks like, and I got to admit, I had an inkling about what was going on early on, and then just one little line derailed me, and I backed off from that theory. But it turned out to have been right in the first place. So,
Okay, I'm kind of curious. What is it exactly that you were thinking like with this episode?
so when it's first laid out that the second stringers are getting a distress call from Grandpa Max. They got to go help, and who's Grandpa Max being attacked by? It's Ben. And so,
Yeah.
what are the possible explanations for this? One is that it's not actually Ben. Maybe this is, the dupe
Oh, Albedo.
Albedo,
Albedo.
who is going to be coming up later on.
Yeah.
He's mind possessed or something like that. It's another kind of duplicate. Or this is where I said, you know what, it could just be it's a misdirect and this is all just a test for the kids, right?
Yeah.
And I was holding on to that theory until about, I don't know, midway through the episode. And what really had me thinking, yeah, this is definitely it, was because Grandpa Max says to them, stay together, work
Yeah.
as a team. And it's like, okay, this isn't the kind of direction that someone gives when they're calling for help. This is the kind of direction a teacher gives as a reminder on a test. Make sure you read all the instructions, kind of a thing,
Yeah.
without giving anything away. And then the super fast girl takes off on her own, right?
Yeah. Helen.
She gets laid flat by Ben, and I'm like, yep, this is perfect example. They're learning the lesson. They need to work together. And then after she's laid out and unconscious, Ben continues to, twirl his mustache. And I'm like, okay, well, he wouldn't be saying that if this was a test because she's unconscious and there's no one around to hear her. So that ruins my theory. But I was reading way too much into, exposition and the way the storytelling was being done, because it turned out my initial instinct was correct.
Yeah. Yeah, because when Ben is actually attacking him and he turns into Big Chill, one thing that I noticed that would obviously be a subtle reference to the fact that Ben's not actually evil, but it's a test. Mm-hmm. It's the fact that when he's shooting blasts of ice and he's freezing everywhere, he's not actually hitting them. He's hitting generally where they are, but not actually hitting them directly.
Yeah.
And even because there's that one part when he's shooting multiple blasts out of his mouth, and obviously Pierce, Helen, and Alan, they're dodging them, but Ben is clearly not making too much of an effort to directly hit them or actually freeze them, because Ben could very easily freeze all of them with no problem.
Right.
But the fact that he's not really trying to actually hit them does kind of signal to the fact that Ben's not really turned evil or anything, but is rather testing them.
Right.
And what I think is interesting is the guy with the kind of porcupine face. He was the one that kept saying, we have to stay together, we have to work together. Everyone else was trying to do their own thing. He goes, listen, we have to work together.
Yeah.
And when they started working together, that's when they were able to defeat Ben. And I think my favorite bit in this whole episode was after Ben comes back onto the ship after they find out it was a test. And he goes, "I can't believe you guys threw me out into space."
That was not cool, man.
You seem to be getting quieter and quieter.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah. The net seems to be getting quieter, and I don't know if that's like the microphone
Because she's
or if
not
like
talking directly into the microphone.
okay. Yeah. We also have obviously the station that they're on is like a plumber station used to store like dangerous alien technology, or specifically technology that's too dangerous to be on Earth. So we don't actually see any like specific technology. We just sort of see hallways, and I'm wondering if like that information is something that Pierce was told as like false information to make him think like a certain way, or maybe if that genuinely is just a storage or an off-world storage.
It could be a function of both. It could very well be that that's what it started out as. So it's not a complete lie to say that, but its current use is, a training facility, right?
Yeah. And we also have when Ben turns into Raph and he's fighting Manny, and they accidentally damage the gravity controls, so then it starts slowly plummeting down to the planet. And obviously at first they're unaware that's even happening. And we even have a part where they where I think at the end where Grandpa Max even admits that that part wasn't like a part of the test. Although I do like that even though that wasn't part of the test, it still kind of forces them to make a decision that like a plumber or a hero in general would make, because the ship was starting to crash down, and and they identify that it's going to crash land in a populated area.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically they say London, but considering the image shown was indicating just the UK in general, not specifically London. In fact, where that would have landed probably would have been somewhere nearer the actual near farmland rather than actually in. I mean, obviously the effect of the station coming down from orbit and landing there, it probably still would have caused some serious damage to like a very large area of the country. But like, it is slightly weird that they say London is where it's aiming. I think they just say that just to convey that it's a bad idea if it crash lands.
Yeah, I think they're also going with the idea that most of the audience is probably American and may not know much about the layout of the UK, and so
Yeah.
if we say
Also,
London, that pretty much communicates lots of people die.
But here's another thing. Grandpa Max even says, you guys, messing up the controls to put us out of orbit was definitely not part of any of this. So does that mean that the self-destruct should have actually have happened because that wasn't part of the test?
I thought about that too.
Yeah.
But it's entirely reasonable that Grandpa Max had some sort of an override on it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think with it crash landing or not blowing up when they put it in the self-destruct, I think it's a case of Grandpa Max wasn't planning for it to crash land anywhere, but when that started happening, he like saw an opportunity to really test them with something.
Yeah, see what they're gonna do. But let me, just in case they do decide to set off the self-destruct, let me disable that.
Yeah. Yeah, and also turn on the thrusters so that it can push it back into so it can be pushed back into its proper orbit. Yeah.
Oh, Star Trek reference too. When he inputs the code for the self. Oh no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was binary.
No. I'm sorry. I,
Wrong
I'm
episode.
I'm mistaking this with the destruction of the Omnitrix. My
Yeah,
Same
apologies.
thing I
wrong
did
episode.
previously.
Yeah, I mean the Star Trek episode that I thought of when I was watching this was the Deep Space Nine episode. It
Yeah,
was
no.
the one where Garrick, Chief O'Brien, and Nog go to an abandoned Cardassian station, like one that's very similar to
Yeah.
Terok Nor, but it's a different one. And when they go there, they come across a couple of Cardassians that are frozen in stasis, and they have this like substance that like enhances their like killing instinct and their xenophobic tendencies of Cardassians. And
Mm.
Garrick, after killing a few of the Cardassians, some of that stuff gets on him, so then he starts acting the same as them somewhat. And then it's like a case of Garrick running through the station, stalking Chief O'Brien and Nog. I don't. That might have been an intentional similarity, but I feel like it might just be a coincidence that there's a somewhat similarity there.
Perhaps, yeah.
Although obviously, Chief O'Brien, Nog, and Garrick travel to this other station for a different reason. They're not there for recruit training. Yeah, I believe it was a piece of Cardassian tech in another station is useful for Deep Space Nine itself, and they're there to retrieve that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually remember what episode or what season of Deep Space Nine that was from.
I don't either, but I know I that does sound familiar to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have too much more to say about this episode. Okay, yeah. Next episode, Vendetta. Now, this one is the second episode of this season that is also written by Len Wein. Wayne Wein? I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that name properly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this episode is also written by him. Although it's only this episode and the previous one that's of this season that's written by Len Wein.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So we get a great deal of lore about Devin Levin, his father, their history, and so forth.
Kevin's father.
And then Princess
I've noticed a
Bride Love
similarity
drops
between the
in.
namings of like Kevin and like his extended family, because in the alternate future of the original series,
Mm-hmm.
we had Kevin's son who was named Devlin. Yeah, I think it's Devlin, and in this show, his father is named Devin.
Yeah.
I'm noticing like a similar name or a similar reoccurring part of like their name. Yeah, so this episode actually shows us Kevin's biological father
Mm-hmm.
and what happened to him. So Devin himself is a plumber and one of Grandpa Max's partners, or in the past. Although for some reason Grandpa Max in the past, they used the exact same model for Grandpa Max, like in the present and in the past, but they used
Mm-hmm.
a different voice, so it looked kind of jarring.
Yeah, that is kind of strange.
Yeah, so
Well, what I liked in this one was the Princess Bride reference when Kevin goes to the fellow that killed his dad and says, "My name is Kevin Levin. You killed my father. Prepare to die."
Yeah.
I noticed the Princess Bride reference as well.
And oh shoot, what was his name? The villain. It was
Oh,
Ragnarok.
Ragnarok.
Ragnarok. I'm like, seriously, Ragnarok?
I'll let you go first with what you think of this episode.
Well, I mean, ultimately, it's a great story. It's resolution of the past. I mean, it's aptly named Vendetta, right?
Yeah.
What's kind of a challenge, though, is not a very heroic ending, right? He's given the
Yeah.
opportunity to decide to show mercy, and he's like, nope.
Yeah, but look how many times Kevin tried to kill Ben. Just like, I don't care
Yeah,
if you get
because
hurt or killed.
There definitely is a dark streak there with Kevin. They haven't let
yeah,
that go.
and when Kevin learned that this guy is the one who killed his father, like basically all throughout the episode, Kevin is like determined to avenge his father by either either directly killing Ragnarok or letting him die, or just letting him die. Also, he
Just as a
doesn't say that
Batman
throughout the whole
reference.
episode, but like we do get that whole intention from Kevin all the way through.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at the very beginning when we see Ragnarok, he's like breaks free from a prison in the Null Void.
Mm-hmm.
We do actually see these like robot guards with like these weird blue spherical heads. Those robot guards, we'll actually see them again in Ultimate Alien.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure this is the same. I'm pretty sure this prison in the Null Void. I'm pretty sure we're going to see this same prison again. I don't know if it will be the same one, but we will see a Null Void prison later on as well
Mm-hmm.
with these same robot guards. So it might be the same place.
What's going on with the
Yeah,
Null Void prison? Everyone keeps getting out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how people just keep getting out of the null void. What is, you
yeah.
know,
Although this time we do actually see an open portal that
true.
Ragnarok jumps to. Although it is a pocket dimension, there is the possibility that there are like little like escape routes out of the dimension, or like weak spots where the dimensions like overlap. I don't know if like the series itself never really elaborates on anything like that, so that could be purely purely a like purely my own headcanon. Yeah, we have and also obviously Grandpa Max when he hears that Ragnarok is loose. Like I do like the reaction from Grandpa Max when Ben and Gwen go up to Grandpa Max asking who Ragnarok is. Because obviously that opens up an old memory for Max.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, we're like and we even have when Kevin actually approaches Ragnarok, he actually refers to Kevin as an Osmosian,
Mm-hmm.
which Kevin's technically not a full Osmosian. He's half Osmosian because his mother is human.
Right.
But that's like where his powers come from.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll point out that the whole thing with as Osmosians is later on that will get a little more confusing because there will be parts where the show itself will tell us that Osmosians are like a made up word, but that doesn't make any sense because there are other characters in this show separate from who have like no involvement in other events who also know of Osmosians. So clearly they're an actual species, not something that's made up. But we don't have to worry about that right now because we're not at that point where that will get confusing.
And we also have at the end when the ship is destroyed, you have that moment where Gwen and Ben, witness it, and I don't know. I just felt like the way she sees it as oh, Kevin didn't make it, and it was very much like the part in Return of the Jedi when the Death Star blows up. You know,
Yeah,
oh, I'm sure Luke wasn't on that thing when it blew. It
yeah.
definitely had that kind of a feel to it.
I did
Um,
find it strange where the episode ended with Kevin just sort of walking out of the shadows like a few moments after it exploded, with
yeah,
no explanation whatsoever as to how he got back to Earth so quickly, and
right.
and also with himself being basically unharmed.
Right. He survived it somehow. That was the
Yeah,
important point. But we also get the whole, what about Ragnarok? Oh, he didn't make it. And they both have that look like,
What
huh.
did you do?
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. So again, we definitely have this element to Kevin that he's got that dark streak, and he could still go either way. He could still tip over towards villain, or he could be a hero. But right now, he is very
He's Anakin.
he's very Anakin. Yeah.
yeah. I suppose we could say that him being in a mutated state has affected his mind. Because remember, the last time Kevin mutated, it did kind of it did kind of affect him.
That's true.
Yeah, because mutated Kevin from the original series did act kind of psychotic sometimes.
Yep, that's true.
So that is also a theme that will come up later on about Kevin's mutation possibly affecting his mind, or to some extent. Yeah. So and we also have Kevin's father, Devon. Obviously, he's a full-blooded Osmosian, and we also see him use his powers as well.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that I don't know if you would have if you noticed it, but the voice actor for Devon, yeah, for Devon, is the same guy who played Mr. Fantastic in the early 2000s Fantastic Four movies.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
I've completely forgotten his name, but I do remember who it is. And at first, I didn't notice who it was, but I like subtly recognized the voice,
Mm-hmm.
both because I've heard it before and also because like I'm watching an American show and then suddenly I'm hearing a character with a very clear British accent.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's both jarring and also because I am around that kind of accent quite a lot, so I recognize it very easily.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah. So like I recognized that. I was like, hang on, I know who that is. And I looked it up and actually saw who it was, and I was like, oh, it's him. I saw him from this.
Yep.
So
So there was one little reference in there that I caught that I really liked because we had the Return of Wrath, right?
yeah,
And they're fighting and they're dealing with the Forever Knights and Gwen says something like "Lady or Tiger, boys, what's your choice?" And that's clearly a reference to the famous short story "The Lady or the Tiger" by Frank Stockton. I know
yeah,
that one very well because I was in the apple tree in high school, and I played the lion tamer from Lady or the Tiger.
yeah. Although I have not heard of that story, so I didn't catch that. I didn't catch that reference.
Really? Oh, it's
Yeah,
worth looking into. It's a great um, uh, what do you call it? Like cliffhanger ending. It leaves you on a cliffhanger.
yeah,
The basic story being a crime has been committed, and the sentence is you have to go into an arena and open one of two doors. You have your choice. Behind one is a lady that you have to marry, and behind the other is a tiger that will,
Eat
kill
you.
and eat you. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Um, but even the survival option is a mixed blessing because it's not the lady you want to marry; it's somebody else.
Ah, okay. Yeah, yeah.
But
And
anyway,
The lion tamer is the one who is the only one who knows what's behind each door.
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. So in another indirect reference in the play and in the story. You don't know what the lion tamer says because the 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 condemns true love finds out from the lion tamer which door has the tiger behind it. But then she has to decide: do I save him, give him the information to save himself, and still lose him to another woman, or do I, just let him die? If I can't have him, nobody will. And
Yeah.
that's what sets up the tension. But the lion tamer whispering in, her ear, you don't really know what he said, and it's very much like Gwen, whispering to herself. We don't know what Gwen said to herself.
Yeah.
And Troy, did you say that every time you had to do the line, you said something different?
Yes, yes. In the rehearsals, when I would whisper in the actress's ear who was playing the princess, I would say it's the right one or it's the left one. And then after the performance, she came to me and she said, I was wondering, in your mind, when you said the right or the left, were you telling me which one had the woman behind it or which one had the tiger behind it? And I said, ah, yes, indeed. And I never answered her.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I know, but it's so in keeping with the story.
Yeah. And we had the second time for one of the Forever Knights making the Monty Python reference. Because in this episode, one of the Forever Knights also does the Monty Python Holy Grail thing. It was like, run away, run away.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
Although I suppose this second time doing it makes a little more sense because it is a furry animal attacking them and then running away,
True.
which does connect more to the Holy Grail with the fact that it's the killer bunny and then they run away from it.
True, true.
I suppose this second time makes a little more sense. Or if you've seen Monty Python the Holy Grail, then it makes a little more sense.
Absolutely.
There's one thing about this episode that I feel like didn't really get as much thought as the rest of the plot, and that's what exactly Ragnarok intended to do with the the energy from the sun that he was, because he was after a key to summon his ship back so that he can then absorb the energy from the sun, and there wasn't much given as to why he's doing that or why he what he gains from doing that or why he even wants to do that in the first place, other than him continuing where he left off the last time he tried to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Ragnarok himself was very much I feel like he was very much like a plot convenience, and more so the focus was more so on Kevin and like his connection to Ragnarok.
Yep.
Okay. That's about everything that I have for this episode.
Yep, me too.
Okay. The final, and now we're on the season finale. Because even though I watched this as in two separate parts, I'm still going to refer to it as just one big episode rather than going with like part one, part two.
Yep, and so here we get the return of Albedo, the evil twin.
Yep. So last time we saw Albedo in the season two episode, he was imprisoned in his Omnitrix was disabled and he was put into a jail cell with a whole bunch of other alien prisoners. So this episode starts with Myax telling Azimuth that the Ultimatrix core that he was working on was stolen, and he's like, at first he's not sure he doesn't know who it is that's stolen it. He's like, yeah, not to worry, we can rebuild that. And then when he learns that Albedo is the one who stole it, then his attitude to that changes, and then he's like, no, not him, anyone but him.
Yeah.
And yeah, so as Albedo uses the Ultimatrix core to create the Ultimatrix, which he then plans to then use to turn himself back into his original Galvin form. But then he finds that the list, or the extended list of aliens that Ben can turn into, isn't available for him.
Yeah, he's kind of stuck with where the current Omnitrix is set on its set of 10, so to speak.
Yeah. And he needs the Omnitrix itself in order to repair his ultimate, well, not repair, but in order to reset his Ultimatrix so that he can then access more of the aliens and turn himself back into a Galvin.
Right.
And it's at this point that Vilgax steps in out of the shadows and basically propositions him to a team up where Vilgax can have revenge and Albedo can have the Omnitrix. Now, obviously, given how Vilgax has been, we know Vilgax wants the Omnitrix, so we know he's lying when he says he doesn't care about the Omnitrix and he just wants to kill Ben.
Right.
But obviously, Albedo doesn't know that, so that's purely why he said that. But yeah, and we also have, I think it's the first time that Vilgax has teamed up with someone where they've actually kind of fought things out a little more, because the last time Vilgax teamed up with someone, which was the mutated Kevin, they somewhat used tactics and fought things through, but not everything. Whereas this time, Vilgax has actually got a proper plan in place where Albedo was kidnaps everyone who's helping Ben, so they kind of isolate them from Ben, so that he's the only one that they have to deal with. Which the last time Vilgax teamed up with someone, he didn't really do that. He just sort of they went in a different direction the last time, but not this time.
Right.
So, what did you think of this episode as a season finale?
I really liked the idea of the lore of the a little bit of a little bit more look into the Omnitrix and the potential with I guess we'll call it an upgraded version of the Omnitrix.
Yeah.
The promise of what can be done with the Omnitrix. I mean, we've kind of already seen it. We already know there's thousands and thousands of aliens potentially in it.
Yeah,
We're
but
only
yeah,
seeing 10 at a time at any given time, but now we're not only getting all of those aliens, and we also see that the Ultimatrix draws from the same database as the Omnitrix, so it's got access to all the same aliens, but it also can extrapolate the evolution of those races to an ultimate form. So you get to see, for example, going back to what you mentioned earlier on, Ultrasaur. No,
Ultimate Humongosaur.
Ultimate Humongosaur, yeah. When he becomes Ultra Humongosaur, he gets these blaster hands, which doesn't really make a lot of sense biologically, but nonetheless.
And this is the one where we find that Ben actually knows how to make the Omnitrix self-destruct.
Right, and this was
brought up before.
When he gives the command to self-destruct, it's the same command code used in Star Trek 3 to destroy the Enterprise.
And also an episode of the original series.
Yes, exactly.
The episode with the black and white, the guys with black and white faces, like one half black, one half white.
Right.
Right.
Because one of them has control of the ship, and Captain Kirk like sets the ship to self-destruct if he doesn't like let go of control.
Yep.
And similarly, also bluffs him out of, tries using the self-destruct to bluff someone out from doing something. Although obviously in this episode it doesn't happen exactly the same way as with Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
It appears either Vilgax like doesn't care if the Omnitrix blows up, or maybe he genuinely thinks Ben is bluffing and won't actually let it blow up.
Oh, he totally thinks he's bluffing.
I suppose it could go either way.
Nope. It's like, it can blow up. I don't care.
Yeah,
But then what was
I do
interesting
like that moment where Ben, I think Ben like walks up to Vilgax and he says, and he's like, "You're going to trick me into taking off the Omnitrix?" Or he's like, he's like coming up with different things that Ben could possibly do, and then Ben's just like, "No, you're going to give him the Omnitrix of your own free will." I do like that. He's like, "What? Why would I do that?" He's like, "So you don't blow up."
And
And then, like,
the other thing about that destruct code, unless I'm mistaken, it works with an Amazon Echo. Alexa, code 000, destruct 0.
Destruct sequence is activated.
Yep, it does work.
What's she got to destruct?
She's going to blow up her Echo Dot, I guess.
We'll find out.
2, 1.
Well, we just been destroyed, folks.
Now, one thing I noticed also in this episode is a continuity issue. After Ben takes the Omnitrix from his doppelganger,
We narrowly escaped. Calls for a music party. Got it. Star Trek auto destruct sequence would like to use song quiz to do that.
Alexa, stop. Thank you.
so after Ben takes the Omnitrix or Super Omnitrix or what you're calling it from his doppelganger, it's red. But then at one point it turns green, and it's like,
Yep.
what?
And I don't think that's
Yeah.
a mistake. I think that's absolutely intentional. It seems to me to infer that the Omnitrix is aware of things like costume,
Yeah.
schemes and stuff like that.
And also albedo being red is because the whole discoloration by his fake Omnitrix feedback, or like the feedback from his knockoff Omnitrix.
Right.
I'm assuming that like kind of then caused him to discolor and go. And either the Ultimatrix, either he built it red, or he built it and then it turned red while it was on him. I'm not sure which. They never actually show that.
Well, I'm referring to is that when Gwen sees it on his wrist, she makes a comment about it, and it's red. And then it's like, his sleeve goes down, and then like next scene or so later, it's green. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah, because before Ben uses the Ultimatrix to transform into a Swamp Fire, we do see it kind of the symbol on the core of the Ultimatrix. We see it turn green. Yeah, there is actually one part of that I really like when he's taking the Ultimatrix from Albedo. He's like, I'm taking your Omnitrix. He's like Ultimatrix. He's like, what's in it for me? And he's like, I don't have time for this. And then he uses the self-destruct code again. And he's like, hey, what do you know? The Omnitrix, it recognizes my voice. And I was like, that does actually make sense because it is the same technology and it is a copy of the Omnitrix. So it makes sense that it recognizes his voice. And also Albedo literally sounds the same as Ben, so there's also that. Yeah, I like the fact that when he activates the self-destruct, Albedo's immediately does the same thing Vilgax did. He's like, "You're bluffing," and then he like holds up the broken Omnitrix, and he's like, "Ask Vilgax if I'm bluffing."
What was nice too is that because it blew up, Kevin got reverted back to his human form, but then he got his old abilities back, but he still looked human. But
Yeah,
at
that's
no
because
point does this guy ever feel embarrassed. He's walking around in his underwear.
yeah, yeah. Like I said in the last stream, the part one for season 3, the reason Kevin is stuck in that mutated form, like the metamorpho form as we've called him. The reason he's stuck like that is because the Omnitrix is because that mutated form he's in is because of the Omnitrix, and the Omnitrix still being around is keeping him in that form. So when the Omnitrix blows up, he then reverts back to how he was.
Right.
And there's also one addition. I don't know if it actually happened in the episode, but the shapeshifting abilities that he has in this like metamorpho form. Once that's gone and he's back into how he was, and he can absorb matter the way he used to, the shapeshifting powers that he gained, they actually are still there, so he can kind of use the shapeshifting abilities for this metamorpho form with the previous powers, his like original powers that he was using before.
Mm-hmm.
So him being in this form, it's not a complete waste of time. That he'd actually gain something from it, or from being in that form.
He does make a point. He goes, "Look, I got my old abilities back."
Yeah. Yeah, because that moment he was referring to the fact that he can absorb matter again, or absorb it and get like a metal shell or metal skin or whatever it is whatever that power is specifically called.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, what a surprise! Vilgax turns on Albedo and doesn't give him the Omnitrix when they actually take it from Ben.
Right.
Look, this is my shocked face.
Yeah. And also,
and you
like
also what kind of want to say to Albedo? Duh. Does that word mean anything to you?
Yeah. And one other thing, this shot right here, when he emerges from the cave behind him, that's the same cave entrance from the season 2 episode of Alien Force. With the giant green child alien that was trying to get back to the ship. And then the ship like flies out of the cave and goes into space. Yeah, this is the exact same cave. The one that the hybrid were mining in, and they found that ship in there. Yeah, this is the exact same place, except this time they stay outside of the cave rather than going in, because Ben recognizes it's a trap, and he's like, "I'm not going in there." And we also have this is an instance of Vilgax having the same plan that he had before in the original series. It's just this time it's in a slightly different way, because all we really got from the original series is that he wanted to create an army of people wielding their own Omnitrix and transforming into different aliens.
Right.
And him using these like bioid robots that are genetically linked to the Omnitrix, so that when he transforms into an alien, all of them turn into an alien instead of him. Obviously, it's not like identical, but it's generally the same plan. He still has an arm. He still is in control of an army that can all transform into different aliens from the Omnitrix.
Yep.
I think I would have at some point just go, "Dude, so how's that plan working out for you?"
Wait, can you say it again? I didn't quite hear that.
It's like I would be asking him at some point, "Yeah, how's that plan working out for you?" Because he keeps going after the same planet. It's not working.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the plan is slightly different. It's not. I mean, it's the same general plan, but the specific details of how he's accomplishing said plan is different. Yeah. we also get, right near the end of the episode, we get to see Vilgax's true form. Which there's also a little joke before that that I did actually find funny when the ship is when the Vilgax's ship is crash landing and they steer it off so that it goes into the ocean instead of actually hitting any like populated area. I do find it funny that when Vilgax says is like you now have to face the true form of Vilgax. No, he says that after. Yeah, he says Vilgax says he's like we're now in my element, and Ben just says is like a sinking ship is your element, which I did find
It
that
makes so
funny.
much more sense now for something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and Vilgax breaks the glass so that more of the water floods in, and then he transforms into a giant squid.
Yeah.
He's Cthulhu.
And he also loses all of his armor because we do see his armor or bits and pieces of his armor come flying off and fly towards, and then we never see that again. Although there is one thing that's kind of unresolved, and that's like what happened to Albedo when the ship crash landed into the ocean, because we never see Albedo like escape or get away or anything like that. We just all we know is that Albedo is on board the ship, and then a whole bunch of other stuff starts happening, and then he's basically forgotten about at that point.
Do we ever see him again?
Yes, we do see Albedo again. He comes back a few more times.
So somehow he survived.
So the presumption
Yes.
is that he got to like a quote unquote lifeboat and got out.
Right. Somehow.
Yeah, except we don't actually see it, so we don't have a clue how he gets out. I don't remember if any episode later on explains how he survived this or how he got out of it. Yeah, so now that now Ben doesn't have the Omnitrix anymore, that's been destroyed. Well, the prototype Omnitrix has been destroyed.
Right.
Now he has the Ultimatrix, which also has a problem with Ben mistransforming. We don't see that immediately because he only turns into one alien. I mean, we see two ultimate forms, that's Humongousaur and Swampfire, but Ben only turns into one alien that he turns into Swampfire, and then later he turns into Jetfire. Jetfire? Why? I don't know why I said that. Jet Ray, that's the right name.
Right.
I think I've been speaking too long. Yeah, so Ben now has the Ultimatrix, and it also has a problem with mistransforming him into the wrong alien. Except the reason for that is because the Ultimatrix is a knockoff, or it's an inferior knockoff, but makes up for that fact by having the feature of turning these aliens into their ultimate form. Yeah, so that's pretty much everything that I have to say about the finale of the show.
Yep, and that is Alien Force.
Yep. I did really enjoy the season 3 finale, or this finale of the show.
Yep.
Yeah, as we pointed out,
I did.
Prior, it's like in these later episodes, you could see that Ben is going back to the old Ben that was a little bit more mature and, not acting like a bratty kid. I am all powerful. I have the Omnitrix. It was more mature.
Oh, and we also get, and I forgot, this was why I chose this icon. Kevin, is, back in his human form, and of course, because he's been running around in black underwear, he's literally just a guy in his underwear now, which looks kind of creepy when he's giving everybody a hug.
I know, it's like, I was just cringing when he's sitting there just hugging everybody. I'm like, this is a dude in his underwear hugging people. Nope, no. And it doesn't seem to be the least bit embarrassed.
No, but they do kind of look at him like,
Yeah.
Like, dude, stop hugging us. You're in your underwear.
But, yeah.
Yeah, so that is now the end of the prototype Omnitrix. now we'll be following Ben with the Ultimatrix, and whatever kind of problems emerge from him having that, or any.
I forget. Does Azimuth know about this one?
Wait,
Yeah.
can you say that again?
Azimuth does know about this one, right?
Yeah, he is aware of the Ultimatrix.
In
Because
fact,
he's the one who made the core of the actual dial for the Ultimatrix.
and
It's just Azimuth's the one who built the rest of it in
he
secret.
seemed to imply that he was nudging Ben towards the plan that would lead him to obtaining this version.
Yeah, there is definitely a plan with like the progression of the Omnitrix in terms of what's the different upgrades and other versions of it in general. There is like a progression that Azimuth is kind of. I don't know if he's directly nudging Ben in like a specific direction, but he is. There is like a progression of the Omnitrix that Azimuth is working on. Yeah, so now next we'll be looking at Ultimate Alien Season 1. Now this is the somewhat confusing part about this. In some instances, Ultimate Alien Season 1 is considered the first 10 episodes of the season of the show, and then all the episodes after that are considered season 2 and 3. Although sometimes it's referred to, and then other times it's referred to as the first 20 episodes of season 1, and then the last 20 episodes are referred to as season 3, and there's like a small number of episodes in the middle of the season 2. The second option is what I'm going with, because if we go with season 1 being the first 10 episodes, then we end up stopping halfway through a story, because season 1 is the first 20 episodes and it has a continuous story going all the way through. And I suppose we can consider the halfway, the first 10 episodes to be the first half of the story, and then the next 10 episodes the second half of the season, or the second half of the story.
Sure.
So we're not going to consider the first 10 episodes season 1. We're going to consider the first 20 episodes of to be season 1 instead. But we're only going to watch the first 10 episodes because obviously we can't watch 20 episodes in 2 weeks. I mean, I probably would be able to do 20 episodes in 2 weeks, but like obviously for convenience to you and Annette, we're only watching 10 episodes.
Well, here's where we run into a problem, because in 2 weeks, Netter and I may not be available for a show because we're going to be out of town. So, what we might end up having to do, if we're going to split it into 10 episodes, I guess maybe do 10 episodes next week and then 10 episodes 2 weeks after that. Can we do it that way?
Yeah, will you be able to manage 10 episodes in just a week?
We'll make it work. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's only because when we started this, you didn't quite get through 13 episodes in 1 week. I think it was 9 episodes you managed to get through.
Yeah, it's rough, but we'll figure it out. We'll get it done.
Yeah. Yeah. So so the first 10 episodes of Ultimate Alien.
Yep.
Yeah. So obviously because Ultimate Alien has two of the seasons of Ultimate Alien are twice the length. Obviously, we're going to be splitting both those 2 seasons in half. So we're basically going to be watching 10 episodes per stream for the most part. Basically, from this point onwards, it's going to be 10 episodes per stream.
Yep.
Yeah, but when we get to Omniverse, that actually has 10 episodes per season, so we won't have to worry about splitting a season when we get to that point. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So, Yep. And until next time, let the Matrix light your darkest hour, till all our